The Bryce is not talking. The Bryce is not talking about three ways, whether he had pigul intent, either the first or the second or the third. Rather, it's talking about pigel. He had pigul intent. Barishona v'shatak during the first avoda, then he was quiet during the application of the blood. Bashniya, and the second, v'chazar or pigel. Sorry, I didn't read it correctly. Pigel barishona. So he had pigul intent during the first one. V'shatak bashniya, and he was quiet during the second. V'chazar pigel bashlishit, and then he had pigul intent during the third. That which he had pigul intent, according to Rabbi Meir, this is only because he thought in the first one, and therefore we say due to this, also in the second application, that he did it according to his first daya, view, thought. And the Brisa comes to teach a novelty. Mahu the tema, you might have thought to say, Salka Daitach, that which he did in the second one, Adat Rishonahu, Mihadar Pigule, that which he did, second one, he did it according to his first thought, to go back and to think. Also in the Shlishit, Lamali, why do you need the third? Kamash Malon, the Brisa comes to teach us, and explain that very well. It comes to teach us that even in the case where he went back and he thought of pigul, you don't learn from that for what he did before. We still say, and this is a view of Rabbi Meir, that the second he did it according to the first thought he had. It's not chatzi materes pigul gamul. Chiddush is the second one is following the first. In other words, it's proving the view of Reish Lakish. I'm getting an art school because I did not explain that well. So on 42a2, the Brisa is dealing the Brisa is dealing with the case where the Kohen intended pigul during the first set of applications. Shatak b'shniya was silent during the second set of applications. Chazal pigel b'shlishit, and then again he had intent of pigul during the third set of applications. Meir holds that the offering is pigul because the second set of applications is deemed to have been done on the basis of the original pigul intent. The sages agree with this reasoning. In other words, the second application is following the first set. That's what Reish Lakish holds. That's how he explains Rabbi Meir. Now, if you look at footnote 18, the Brisa is not dealing with a case where the blood spilled and another animal was slaughtered, but with an ordinary case in which all the applications are done with the blood of one animal, and the Kohen intended pigul during only some of the applications. However, when the Brisa states pigel ben barishona ben bashniya ben bashlishit, it does not mean the intended pigul during either the first or the second or the third set. Rather, it means he intended pigul during the first and third sets and was silent during the second set. That's what it means. According to Rabbi Meir, we apply the principle that a person acts on the basis of original intent. So we therefore say that even the second set that was done without pigul intent, even the second set was done with pigul. It was not done with pigul intent, but it is considered pigul intent because the first one had pigul intent. Al dat rishona will say, as we explained, according to Reish Lakish's explanation of Rabbi Meir. And it was thus intent throughout the matir. According to the sages, we do not follow this principle, and part of the matter therefore is lacking the pigul intent. As the Brisa fits well with Reish Lakish, which is the interpretation of disputes with Rabbi Meir. So article is explaining to us what Rashi is saying, translating into English, that according to Rabbi Meir, the whole disagreement of Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim is that the second blood application, which was done without pigul intent, is going to be following the first intent. According to Rish Lakish's explanation of Rabbi Meir, the third application of blood was done with pigul intent. Now, Chachamim say has to be a complete matir. According to the Chachamim, since it's lacking, the second they don't consider as follows the first, and therefore they said they make him patur, is exempt. But according to Rabbi Meir, as Rish Lakish explains him, here you have a complete matter because the second is following the first, and therefore the third obviously he had intent for pigul to consume it beyond its time, and therefore it will be effective. That's the explanation we have here. Now we continue in article 42a3. Ma'od Tema, Rava now explains why the Bryce need to mention that Kohen intended pigul during the third set of applications. Ma'od Tema. Okay. Ma'od Tema, you would have thought to say, that he's following that when the Kohen did the second set of applications of blood, it was on the basis of his original intent. Why did he need to specifically intend pigul again during the third set? Kamash Malon, the Price informs us, this reasoning is incorrect, and even in this case we apply the principle that anyone performs several related acts, performs the latter ones on the basis of original intent. I.e., we do not consider the preceding argument valid, thus all the applications seem to have been done with pigul intent according to Rabbi Meir. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Meir. Okay? Now we're going to go on back to the Hebrew Gemara. Matkif la Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi asks on this interpretation of Rava, explains the mission in a different way. Matkif la Rav Ashi, if you really say this, the second one, talking about where he was quiet, and therefore it's following the first one. That's going to be Shakish's explanation of Meir. Midi shatak. Katani, does it say that he was quiet in the second one? In the Brisa, it states clearly that he had pigul intent, the first, the second, or the third. You can't change the clear what it clearly denotes, and give an interpretation and a false. This is not talking about Brisa of three different ways. Kigon, we're dealing with Gegen Shepigel Barishona. He had pigul intent during the first blood application, Barishona Bashnia, the second application of blood, and also Bashlishit during the third. Ma'odatim, we might have thought to say Isal Katatach. If it would go up in your mind to say Kola Oseh, Al Dat Rishona Oseh. Anyone who does it according to his first thoughts, he does it, intends. Mihada pikuli b'chol echad v'echad lamali. Why do you need to go back and have pigul by every one of them? Why did he have to think in every avoda pigul intent? And you could learn from this that the Kohen that didn't do the the avodah, the korban, according to his first thoughts. Certainly, this that he didn't think. We don't say he did it according to his first thoughts. In other words, we deal with a case where the Kohen intended pigul during the first, second, and third set of application, not during the fourth set. That's the point here. What about the fourth? We're not talking about the fourth application. The fourth blood application of Avoda. He didn't have pigul intent. What is that? It's where if you look at footnote 23, according to Rav Ashi, the applications of altar horns and the springs on top of the altar count as two sets. There are total 4 sets of applications. Since the Brisa mentioned the intent, Cohen intended pigul during the first, second, and third sets of applications, the Mitz mentions the fourth. We interpret it as follows: the Cohen intended pigul during the sprinklings in the Holy of Holies, during the sprinklings where it's a pareches, and during the 4 applications to the horns of the inner altar, but not during the 7 sprinklings on the top of the altar. According to Rabbi Meir, we say that he did the final sprinklings on the basis of his earlier intent, thus he is deemed to have done all 4 sets of applications, pigul intent, offering his pigul. According to sages, the 4th set lacked pigul intent, and since there was pigul intent during the first parts of the matzah, the offering is not pigul. In other words, very, very simple. Kamash Malon, that our Bryce is teaching us here that even here we say that according to Rabbi Meir, he's doing it according to his Das Rishoina. Even the 4th avoda, that's the point of dispute between them, is during the 4th avoda. It's a 4th avoda, which is we call it the blood, putting the blood in the state of purity on the altar. So that's what it says. Remember we discussed that you put the blood on the roof of the altar. You sprinkle blood on the roof of the altar 7 times. That's what it's talking about. That's the 4th avoda. So according to Rabbi Meir, the 4th avoda will be following the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd intent of pigul. So the 4th, even though he didn't explicitly state it, it's going to have pigul intent. Or even whatever, yeah. According to the Chachamim, since in the 4th he didn't have pigul intent, it's lacking it's like considered like a chatzi matir. It's not completely matir. In other words, the permitter, all the avodas are essential in order to make pigul take effect. And in other words, like a chatzi matir. Kamash Malon. Okay. Mara asks, Mem bet amud bet. V'ha bein b'rishon bein b'shniya. V'ha bein. Right, it says bein between the 1st, 2nd, or the 3rd. Katane, kashya. The Gemara says the kashya. So the conclusion of the Gemara is very interesting. That Reish Lakish's explanation of Rabbi Meir's opinion, that which was stated, that he stated that a thought of pigul in a half matir makes pigul take effect, is only if he thought during the 1st half of the matir, the permitter. In other words, first avodos, blood applications. And by means of this, we say that also the 2nd half follows the 1st half. In other words, the 1st application, he had intent consuming beyond its time, therefore we say the 2nd blood application is following the 1st application. And this explanation was not refuted by the Brisa. It says that you can do pigul in part of the applications of blood. That even there we can say the intention is that he thought pigul during the 1st applications of blood, and the last ones follow the 1st. So basically, Reish Lakish's explanation of Rabbi Meir is now okay. That Rabbi Meir holds that if the 1st was done with pigul intent to consume beyond its time, so the 2nd will also be, even if he didn't state it, if he was silent. But as long as the 1st application of blood was done with pigul intent.